All right, YouTube. This Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit. It's Tuesday, the 26th, 8 o'clock. Today, we got to talk about the situation with Diddy, Puff Diddy. Now, think about this. Homeland Security raided his house. Not the local police, not the sheriff's office, but Homeland Security. That's rare. I've seen a lot of people, they comment on it, but they're not stressing that point. That's rare for Homeland Security to raid both your homes in California and in Miami and in Florida. So we're going to find out what's going on and why would Homeland Security be involved. I know y'all have heard about the salacious lawsuits and the allegations that's been thrown against him, but it gets much deeper because now we're talking about people on Epstein's list. We're talking about powerful people in Hollywood that's connected to government. We're talking about trafficking in human beings. We're talking about things that cross all borders. You know what I'm saying? And Diddy has obviously outworn his usefulness. But Candace Owens, she did a deep dive into the situation maybe a couple of weeks ago, and they buried the story. And then lately, you done seen the Candace Owens done been fired from The Wire. But she did this story. She deep dived into what was going on with Diddy, and we're gonna look at that. You know what I mean? And I want y'all to watch to the end and think about what they saying he's accused of and what's really going on with him. So this is for fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act for commentary educational purposes. Check out what Candace Owens said.
This episode is brought to you by Preborn. Join me in the fight for life. Donate securely, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. Or go to preborn.com/Candace. All right, guys, happy Monday. And oh my gosh, please stop everything. Have you heard about the P. Diddy scandal? The P. Diddy lawsuit, Puff Daddy, whatever you're calling him. And if you haven't heard about it, why? Because the media in Hollywood are clearly trying to bury it. That is why, but don't worry, we are going to discuss it. Plus, later on in the show, I'm going to demonstrate mental illness for you in the form of a response that I got on Twitter when I said that I wanted to look into the history of pornography. You are not going to believe what two men on Twitter said to me. And later, the CDC now has new COVID guidelines. Rejoice, conspiracy theorists, because it turns out that we were basically right about everything. All that and more today coming up on Candace Owens. When you can't take... Oh my gosh, where do we begin? All right, well, he's changed his name many times over the years. You might know him as Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, Puffy, Puff, P. Diddy, or just Diddy, the D, the I, the D, the D, the Y. Okay, well, there have always been rumors, and quite frankly, I always thought that they were conspiracies because they sounded crazy. First and foremost, rumors that he was gay. Also, rumors that he was behind the killing of his quote-unquote best friend, the notorious B.I.G., and also that he had something to do with the killing of Tupac. Well, last year, things got interesting because Combs's ex, her name was Cassandra, she went by Cassie, and she filed a federal lawsuit against him in New York alleging years of assaults. Now, again, they dated for like more than 10 years, so she obviously was very close to him and knew his lifestyle. Her lawsuit contained graphic allegations that he raped her in 2018, that he physically abused her, that he intimidated her, that he made her have sex with male escorts while he watched. The lawsuit also alleged that he blew up another artist's car, his name was Kid Cudi, in order to stop him from seeing Cassie romantically when him and Cassie split up. I mean, again, all of this sounds insane if it's true. Well, Kid Cudi thought the accusations were true. He said, yes, that is actually what happened. But of course, Diddy denied those allegations. And he instead came out and said that Cassie was simply trying to blackmail him for $30 million. And by the way, that is plausible, right? We've seen tons of those instances, especially in the era of Me Too. But this one felt a little different because we're like, okay, but she's known you for a very long time. And these allegations are quite weird. But we never got a follow up there because then he very quickly settled with her for an undisclosed amount. And then even more women started coming out saying they were victims of Diddy. And then it seemed like an avalanche. And he issued a very strong statement condemning them for essentially extortion attempts and trying to murky his name. So again, you don't know what's real, you don't know what's not until this recent lawsuit. And this one's different, guys. A man named Rodney Jones has come forward to sue Diddy. And this is not your average lawsuit. I will say right now, many lawsuits are in fact frivolous. I have fought and won frivolous lawsuits. This person, however, his name is Rodney Jones. He lived, traveled, and he worked with Diddy as a producer. And he is alleging that he has hours upon hours of recorded footage and pictorial evidence, which has been included in this document to support his claims. And I have to say, these claims seem very credible. Now, to be clear, Rodney, also goes by Lil Rod, is suing Diddy and others, we're going to get to who those others are, for $30 million, claiming that he was subjected to sexual misconduct for the duration of the production process of an album. It is a 70-page lawsuit that has been filed in the Southern District of New York. And he is claiming that while working on the album and living with Combs in New York, California, Florida, other locations, that Diddy repeatedly groped him, touching his, I'm sorry to say this, guys, his anus and his crotch without consent, and attempting to groom him into accepting a homosexual relationship by showing him explicit videos of others in Hollywood. Yes, they have named other artists, claiming that homosexuality was a normal practice in the music industry. It's also claiming that Diddy would walk around the house naked and force him to watch him shower, and is alleging that he went forward and told Diddy's chief of staff, Christina Karam, about this. And Christina came back to him and said, well, Sean will just be Sean. So we're going to go through some of these explosive claims. Again, right at the top, I'm going to make it clear so I don't get sued that these are all allegations. Everything that I'm going to say after this is an allegation that is being claimed by Rodney in this lawsuit document, which we will include as a link for you guys if you are watching this on YouTube. Let's go through the big claims. Ready? Number one, this is perhaps the biggest claim, is that Diddy and his son murdered someone in plain daylight and got away with it. There's apparently a man that they know, that everyone who works with Diddy knows, that they can call and they essentially will get everything cleaned up. And they're implicating the LAPD in this madness because they produced fake reports. And he's got some real good evidence to back up these claims. He says that one evening, during a camp that they were running with several musicians, Mr. Combs and Jay Combs were in a heated conversation with somebody named G. And while this conversation was moved out of the studio and into a restroom that was adjacent to where Jones was sitting, he heard approximately 2 feet away from him, again, Mr. Jones is the producer that's suing him, gunshots suddenly ringing out. He recalls hearing multiple gunshots. Mr. Jones immediately went into a state of shock and fear that he would be shot next. He genuinely believed that he would be shot through the door due to how close he was. After the shooting ended, a crowd gathered around the restroom. When the door finally opened, Mr. Combs and his son exited. G was lying on the restroom floor in a fetal position, holding his stomach and bleeding out of his leg and his hip area. Everyone...
I know you guys can't see the words, but I just was reading it on there. These filings was filed February the 26th, 2024. So it's almost like 30 days, a little over 30 days since this got filed that the Homeland Security running up in his house now.
Stood around and looked up at him. Frustrated by the lack of aid that was being provided, Mr. Jones, the producer that's suing again, dropped everything, ran to the guy, and immediately began placing pressure. As he was applying pressure on his stomach, he realized that G was gushing blood from another area. He decided to lift G up and place him to sit on the toilet, and he asked the crowd to call the ambulance. Now, here is what is interesting. The ambulance does arrive, and Mr. Combs, according to Mr. Jones, Diddy gives strict instructions to inform the police that he had nothing to do with the shooting. He also forced the producer to lie to the police by telling them that G was shot while standing outside of the studio. And the police just believed this, despite the overwhelming evidence that this shooting did not take place outside of the studio and that it instead took place inside near the bathroom. He includes in his lawsuit this photo of the bathroom and we are blurring it here, of the blood in that bathroom. And then it is stunning because he also shows how the media then reported it, right? A fake police report was produced and then fake headlines were the result. This is CBS News. Man shot outside party at Hollywood recording studio. The key word there is outside. How on earth could the LAPD be implicated in lying? Well, he alleges that there is an individual, again, that they know that they can call to clean up any types of murders. That individual will make sure the right officers write down the fake police reports and that those are then fed to the media to cover up murder. The second big explosive thing that comes from this document are the allegations that Diddy hosts freak-offs, essentially sexual events to procure blackmail on other people in the industry. That they all come and they have these drug-fused parties with underage boys, with underage girls, and throughout.
I'm going to interject right there again. Now think about it. In the beginning of this video, we said Homeland Security raided his house. Now it's coming about the videos and who was coming to these parties and who they were blackmailing. If they was using minors to blackmail people who they entrapped at these parties, there's no telling who all is a part of this nefariousness. You know what I'm saying? So don't look at it on the surface. Oh, they raiding Diddy house. Look at why did Homeland Security go in there, and who? Anytime it's Homeland Security, that's like a cold red on the National Security Board. All over Diddy.
This lawsuit, he names multiple current rappers that have been involved in these parties and are therefore existing under blackmail, right? So if you can suddenly record somebody and they're hooking up with a person that is underage, if you're doing drugs and Diddy has cameras on it, well then Diddy owns you. Which leads me to think, what even is gangster rap? It's a question that I have been asking a lot. It seems to me that there is something intentional, that they are intentionally feeding us filth via the media.
Here's how to get your personalized card. It's easy. Create an account, design your card, order, and bam.
And I wonder if a lot of these artists are existing within this blackmail ring. And also, where have we heard this before? Oh, yes, of course, Jeffrey Epstein, who was bizarrely protected. He was clearly an asset of not just the CIA, but also potentially the Mossad, very much involved with the Mossad over in Israel. And he, too, had so much access, so much wealth, and he got away with it for years, procuring what very clearly is blackmail on politicians. So what we are recognizing is that this ring also exists within Hollywood. Explosive allegation number 3 was that there's even a Ghislaine Maxwell, so to speak, a madame, and that is the other woman that is listed in this lawsuit. His chief of staff, Christina Karam. I don't know how journalists aren't interested in figuring out who this woman is. Her job, as alleged in this lawsuit, was to keep Diddy high. I'm going to tell you what this lawsuit says explicitly about her. According to Mr. Jones, during the 13 months he lived and traveled with Diddy, he witnessed defendant Karam openly order her assistants to keep Mr. Combs high off of gummies and pills. Defendant Karam required all employees, from the butler, the chef, to the housekeepers, to walk around with a pouch or a fanny pack filled with cocaine, GHB, ecstasy, marijuana gummies, and Tukey. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That's a pink drug that is a combination of ecstasy and cocaine. It was important to the defendant Karam to have Mr. Combs' drug of choice immediately ready whenever he asked for it. She also ordered, allegedly, sex workers and prostitutes for Mr. Combs and would order the distribution of ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms to Mr. Combs and his celebrity guests who were present on his rented yacht and in his homes throughout LA, New York City, and Miami. And he alleges that he was also forced to keep that drug in a pouch on him at all times against his.
Did y'all hear? I know y'all did. He had handlers that made sure he had pills at his disposal. He had actual handlers. You know what I'm saying? We looking at some very nefarious and luciferic behavior coming from the so-called elite, the so-called icons. I had to go find this case, this court case. One of the subscribers put in. It's an interesting court case. It's called Cattle Rock versus Colorado. It's about citizens and their rights as far as with law enforcement. It's Cattle Rock versus Colorado. All right.
Well, again, this is explosive. He even lists everybody in the ring. He says that it is his Diddy's son, Justin, that solicits the prostitutes and the underage girls and the sex workers, allegedly, for these freak-offs. He also lists Stevie J, who recruits the sex workers and attends and participates in the freak-offs, and another young man named Brendan Paul, who works as Mr. Combs' mule. He acquires and distributes all of the drugs and the guns.
Now I'm gonna say this. Candace did this video like about 2 weeks ago, and see how she named the sons, and people was wondering why when they raided that house, they put Puffy's sons in handcuffs. You know what I mean? They cuffed the kid. So, it's deep. Just pay attention. Let's just more.
Again, we won't have time to go through everything in this document, but I encourage you guys to read it because it is stunning. And yes, Christina Karam apparently even instructs them to mix those drugs into the liquor when these women are invited over. So why is the media not interested in this story? Well, here is explosive allegation number 4 coming from this lawsuit. That the person who sits at the top of this ring potentially is Sir Lucian Grange. He is the CEO of Universal Music Group. He is also being sued. He has also been named as well as Universal Music Group. And he is, as a fact, one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. He runs, again, Universal Music Group, which is huge. Rodney, the producer, is alleging that when Lucian would visit Diddy's house, the two of them would go into Diddy's bedroom and be locked up in there for hours. What does that mean? What are we supposed to think of that? By the way, I looked into Lucian, obviously, because I was fascinated by this document. And I find it really bizarre that he completely changed his name. He used to be Michael G., the son of Cecil G., who was a huge tailor in London. I found that in this old article, The Guardian. The headline is "Forgotten and Overlooked: How Jewish Designers Dressed the Beatles and Changed Global Fashion." And in this article, there's a picture of Lucian. He was then, again, Michael G. He's sitting with his father, Cecil G. And it's just bizarre that also his father changed his name. In the article, it tells you that his father used to be Sasha Goldstein. So Sasha Goldstein became Cecil G., who gave birth to Michael G., who is now Lucian Grange. I mean, totally bizarre rabbit hole if you guys want to look into it. I just thought it was weird. I did a cursory search and found all of that. Perhaps most crucial, though, in the lawsuit is that unbeknownst to Lucian, Diddy also has a ton of hidden cameras all throughout his house, including in his bedroom, which would perhaps suggest that the blackmail runs both ways. Maybe he also has blackmail on Lucian Grange. Again, I don't know. I'm just telling you what's in this lawsuit and what we can derive from it if these allegations are true. And again, the fact that there are so many photos in this document at least proves that he does have evidence of some sort. Which brings us to number 5, and this is pretty explosive, that we can garner that Cat Williams was right. I don't know who Cat Williams is. He is the comedian. He's been a comedian for a very long time, and he always just seemed like the funny guy in Hollywood, the funny guy amongst Black America. And last year, people were wondering whether or not he was crazy because he went on somebody's show and said that there was a ring in Hollywood. He actually named Diddy explicitly. He implied that Diddy was a gangster and that he had something to do with bizarre sex parties. Well, now Cat Williams is on Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan podcast, and he is trying to signal to the world that people in Hollywood, that Hollywood altogether was built as a psychological weapon, so to speak. Take a listen to Cat Williams in his own words.
Hello?
I want to say this about those parties. I don't know if any of you have actually studied or read any books on the occult, but if you read and studied any books like about Aleister Crowley and different occultists, they use the sex parties and buggery to actually summon demons. They are actually demonic rituals. Just wanted to add that in, so you'll know. You think it's just it's
My name
about
is Jim
sex?
Caviezel, the actor who played Jesus
More
in the
than
movie
about sex.
Passion of the Christ.
Hollywood is not really there to entertain you. Like, that's great that that happens. But propaganda is something that is important to all civilization.
And those movies are successful. And so they continue this relationship. And you become a bit of a propaganda arm for the government. And in turn, they don't with you.
That's what makes information so powerful is, you don't care how people feel about the ritual. It's about does following the ritual work.
Yeah.
And so you can fool yourself into thinking there isn't one, but the evidence will be clear. So like when I be like, oh, these guys are wearing dresses. Everybody's like, oh, he keeps talking about people wearing dresses. No, it's not.
That is a weird thing.
It's not like that. Look at it from a different way. Look at it. Show me one person that ever wore a dress in Hollywood unsuccessfully. So maybe that's the answer to why the media seems to be burying the story. You can't find it anywhere. Maybe it's because, well, a lot of them are implicated. This is the case of the dog that is not barking right now. It suggests to us that our media is definitively run by some sort of a gang that has amassed a ton of power and wealth via sexual blackmail. Again, we keep hearing this over and over again. At what point are we going to accept that this is true? When we wonder why our media is in lockstep lying to us. He's talking about a ritual where they don't even care. It's performative. They're going to keep men wear dresses until we accept that this is the new thing. He is implying that Hollywood intentionally was sent to make it so that we would accept the trans agenda, which is now everywhere. It wasn't here. Now it's everywhere. And of course, if you think about the intelligence agencies potentially being involved, that they are in lockstep with our policing, like the LAPD at least is implicated in this as we understand it. If they are in lockstep with also journalists, well, then you have a case of what we recognized during COVID. Very much seemed like people were being sent to us to tell us things that we just knew was not true, but they were going to keep saying it until it was. I want you to deeply consider that plausibility, that there is a ring that is operating. It's almost, to me, the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that adds up. There's just been so much obvious lying that is happening in the mainstream media. There has just been so much in terms of the demonic and overtly sexual agendas that are being packaged for children. I have said this for a while, and it's very clear to me that we are all being groomed as a society to accept pedophilia. They're just going, this is totally fine. That seems to be coming down the pipeline. It's clear that there are politicians that are passing pieces of legislation through to support this perverted agenda. It's clear that the celebrities are supporting a perverted agenda. The music makers, well, maybe every single one of them, these individuals, are being blackmailed. Again, I think that is the only thing that makes perfect sense. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I talk about preborn a lot on my show, and that's because I believe in their mission.
Now, wow, Candace dropped that maybe, like I said, 2 weeks ago. And now Homeland Security has raided in Puffy's house. Okay, like I said, over here, we don't do the conspiracy theories. We just deal with the news and what's being reported. You know what I mean? You can put it together because it's like Daniel. You can see the writing on the wall in this country. I ordered this book though. I got it yesterday. I already started on reading it. You guys should get this book. This is a nice book. It's a nice book. It's the Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, the Bill of Rights, and Amendments. It's the United States Constitution, but it's concise. You carry with you. This is the law. You know what I mean? This trumps whatever they got in statutes and canons and regulations and licensing. You know what I mean? It's getting to the point that we're gonna have to stand on, the word of God and the Constitution as we know it. If we're gonna be about God and country, we got to at this point understand we've been sold out. The citizens, the populace, we've been sold out. You know, so enjoy the rest of y'all morning. Signing to y'all out of Detroit. Salute to all patriots. Keep y'all head on the swivel as always. Peace. Like, share, and subscribe.